Okay, so Antman and the Wasp Quantumania is now out, and throughout this video we're going to be breaking down the film, talking about some of the Easter eggs, the ending, and also where it could be going in the future. This review is going to contain Jonathan major spoilers, so if you haven't had a chance to check it out, then I highly recommend you check out now. If you enjoy the video, please smash the thumbs up button, and if you want to support the channel, we've just launched a Size Matters Antman inspired t-shirt, which will be linked as the pinned comment. Now, speaking of pushing terrible merch, after a little scene with Janet and Kang, we rejoin Scott Lang, who's now everywhere due to the celebrity that he gained after saving the universe.
Thank you, Spider-Man!
He's reading Look Out for the Little Guy at book events, he's the employee of the century, he's running the red carpets, and this ant is now upping the ant-e like he's your uncle.
Ha ha!
We've got the theme from Welcome Back Kotter, he's doing Sleight of Hand with Jimmy Woo, Hope has made Pym Tech back to being a big name, it's the perfect life.
Welcome back.
However, he and his daughter Cassie aren't as close as they used to be. He's now so wrapped up in the attention that he's taken his attention off his daughter, and she's now following in his footsteps. She gets arrested for taking part in a peaceful protest for homeless people, and this is of course reflecting the thief with a heart of gold that Scott was in the first film. And we discover that lots of people lost their home during the blip, and that not many people can afford to pay rent now, while Scott is living the high life. They do kind of use this idea of helping the down and out to foreshadow a rebellion storyline later on, that we'll talk about more as we get into the video. Scott's whole arc in the movie is basically that he saved the universe once, but that he does nothing now. I was kind of thinking with time dilation in the quantum realm that they might return to Earth years in the future and see it decimated, but there's no real stakes to this movie. Now, the Pyms have also been mentoring Cassie too, and along with gaining a suit, she's also been looking into the quantum realm. Scott is everywhere though, infatuated with himself, and you can't even get in the car with a guy without hearing his audiobook playing on the radio. Which, to be fair, I do listen to my own videos sometimes.
See you, chump.
He tries to guide her as well as he could, but he constantly falls back to bragging about meeting Rocket Raccoon and also being friends with the Hulk. Anyway, we discover that Cassie's built a sort of telescope that looks into the quantum realm, and after the family is sucked into it, the plot kicks it up a notch. You could say it's up in the ante, like your uncle, eh?
That's why we made this. It's like a satellite for deep space, but quantum.
Wait a minute. You're sending a signal down to the quantum realm. Turn it off. Now!
We can help each other with that.
Either way, down here we meet several new characters, including the societies that Kang's already conquered. Scott and Cassie are taken to a group of runaways that lost their home to Kang, and we even get a little cameo by David Dastmalchian, who's playing a new character down in the quantum realm. Now, Janet, Hank and Hope come across Krylar, who possibly had a fling with Janet whilst she was down there, and his character has some brief ties to the comics. Krylar appeared in the Incredible Hulk issue 156, and he was someone that lived in the microverse. He was killed in the same issue that he was introduced in, so there's not that much history in the source material, but I appreciate the little nod to this more obscure character. Either way, he now answers to Kang, and you can tell that he blames Jenna for fleeing so that they had to fight him alone. They steal his ship, and though you might feel bad that Krylar hid it, Hank wasn't hanking every night, as we learn he slept with a woman named Linda.
Nice.
Anyway, Kang's forces arrive with Modoc, and the B guy takes them prisoner. Modoc is a big changer from the comics, and the mechanized organism designed only for killing has now been reworked so that he's Darren Cross. Defeated at the end of the first Antman movie, his body was distorted due to his suit malfunctioning after Scott broke it. He commands the Pythians in this early attack, and these villains pulled directly from the comics and were what made up Kang's Legion. Now he's trapped in a CGI body that makes him have T-Rex arms, a little cute butt, and a massive head. Kind of feel sorry for the guy who had to work on this. The CGI artist, as I actually know someone who worked on Cats. I feel like they wake up every day completely embarrassed about what their life turned into.
He's so ugly! I love him!
Now the comics had him being George Tarleton genetically mutated in order to grow his brain, and this proved too big for his body. There's lots of different takes on the character in the comics, and I actually think that this is probably going to be one of the most divisive things Marvel's ever done. It's such a big swing, and I think a lot of people are going to hate it, but there'll also be some that find this as another weird and wacky thing for the movie. Personally, I think the character was best depicted in the Avengers game, and unfortunately, seeing it done so well there makes us feel like a misfire. Now, it's also during this time that we meet Kang. In case you don't know, Nathaniel Richards was born in the 30th century, and he lived in a technologically advanced utopia that flourished for years and years. His backstory has been changed up several times over the decades, with there being new incarnations that play with the structure. However, there is one key theme going through them all. Richards got bored with how perfect his life was, and he decided to travel back in time. Now, some versions had him instantly becoming a conqueror in the past, and in many instances he travelled back to ancient Egypt. Here he became Ramatut, who we meet at the end of the movie, and this pharaoh ruled over the ancient society for several decades. However, when the Fantastic Four were displaced from time, they ended up taking him down, and thus he fled into the time stream once more. Now in Kang, Only Myself Left to Conquer, we watch as Nathaniel went back in time and encountered an elderly version of himself who brutally trained him. The young Nathaniel was in his Iron Lad guise, and wanting to do good, he vowed to take out his older self after he killed one of the many forms of Ravonna Renslayer that he'd ended up falling in love with. This threw him into a time-travelling war against many versions of himself, and he encountered several other incarnations of Kang along with reincarnations of Ravonna. In the end, war destroyed him, and he ended up becoming the very thing that he sought to take out. As a bitter old man, he encountered his younger version that the comic book started off with, and the cycle once more repeated. It's an incredible story that I definitely recommend you pick up, as it explores the tragic backstory of Kang, whilst also showing just how much of a threat he is. Now in the movie, we learn that the version of Kang we encounter is known as the Exile, and that he was cast out from the Council of Kangs. He even talks about getting revenge on those who banished him, and it's clear that he was too unyieldy to be amongst them.
I will take my revenge on those who banished me.
One of the most dangerous incarnations, he's an incredible threat that gets beaten in his first movie by Antman and the Wasp. However, we do get some of his past touched upon, and we learn that at the very least that this is a Kang who managed to kill a Thor variant. Now we meet this version in the opening scene of the film when we catch Janet stuck in the quantum realm. She sees a ship come crashing down, and weird quantum realm creatures end up attacking her, and Kang saves the day. Throughout the film, we learn what went on with the pair and why she's so terrified of travelling into the quantum realm. Now, I kinda saw this as a bit of a plot hole, because at the end of the last Antman film, we watched as she was happy sending Scott down there, but here she's basically like Jamie Lee Curtis in Halloween. Still though, Michelle Pfeiffer gives an incredible performance, and to me, she's definitely one of the strongest members of the cast.
Let me make this easy for you.
Either way, we discover that Kang had a ship which could travel the multiverse, and that he and Janet attempted to fix it. He promised to help her get her time back with Hope, but she learned of his true nature via a neural network that she connected to on the ship. Now for me, it's the best scene in the movie, and I kinda wish the entire film was like this. We see in flashbacks he destroyed worlds and entire timelines across space. It's possible that He Who Remains is somewhat a variant of him, as we know that he too likely had to do this in order to create the sacred timeline that we see in Loki Season 1. At one point he talks about how he knows what's coming at the end, and he also sets up just how dangerous the Council is. They eventually cause endless incursions, which leads to a multiversal war that we've of course had teasers towards already. Feel like we should have started Phase 5 with a solo Kang movie that showed this, and we could have followed him destroying worlds before getting exiled to the quantum realm. After confronting him about it, Janet ended up stealing the drive and f***ing with it, which left him trapped down there. However, she'd given Kang enough power to, at the very least, get his suit back. Thus he started conquering the quantum realm. Janet ended up running away, and she feels like she left everyone down there to live an oppressed life. Although she shouldn't feel guilty, this is sort of the case too, as since then Kang's used his telekinetic powers to dominate, and now everyone fears him. It's a shame, because they set him up as being a massive threat, but Kang forgets to use those powers in the final battle, even though he could have mopped the floor with Scott. Instead, he relies too much on his army and blasting people, and we get a by-the-numbers fight scene that most Marvel movies tend to devolve into. For example, you had Shuri vs Namor on the beach, which I thought was good, but they also had to have the dumb stuff on the boat. We also had the father versus son fight in Shang-Chi, but then there was the dumb underdweller thing happening on the island. Kinda hope the movies move away from this, as the best finales for me don't involve this sort of thing. Now Kang holds Cassie hostage and promises to kill her in front of him and loop the moment so that Scott has to witness her death over and over again for eternity. It's a really chilling moment, and all that Scott has to do to stop this is go and help him. Thus he sets out on a quest to get the device Kang needs in order to repair his ship. This includes travelling into the multiversal engine that contains a probability storm in which every moment creates a different branched moment. As they say in the film, this is Schrodinger's box, and he's the cat. We watch him split out, and even get a Baskins and Robbins guy going under the name Jack like he was in the first movie. This was actually a reference to Paul Rudd's real-life son, who is also called Jack. Those that get near to the device end up dying, however, when they focus their thoughts on saving Cassie, they all come together. They build a giant anthill, or a small anthill really, because it's in the quantum realm. Anyway, he falls into the pile after failing to shrink the device, which is when he's saved by Deus Ex Wasp. This is her entire character in the movie, just showing up at the last second, and for someone whose name's in the title, she doesn't really get to do much. Eventually they shrink it though, Janet arrives, and Modoc attacks Hank on the ship, calling back to their old rivalry. Now speaking of rivalries, Kang hints towards the Council and the others that banished him. The Council itself is made up of several members including Ramatut, Immortus, and another version. In our video yesterday, we talked solely about the two post-credits scenes, and in those, we said the third member was possibly the Scarlet Centurion due to his name appearing in the leaks. These turned out to be pretty accurate, however, I have spoken to people behind the scenes who've said this is actually Iron Lad. It's possible it's also a new creation for the film, and there is the chance that he's the Beyonder version who is rumoured will be appearing as the villain in Secret Wars. Now in the comics, the three main versions were known as the trio of Kangs, and they made the majority of decisions for the rest of the council. They were headed up by Immortus, who we too see in this scene. He's the oldest version of Kang, and most that live long enough end up becoming him. In the comics, he actually had a master plan to take out the rest of the Kangs, and he created the council to bring them all together so that he could destroy them. In the source material, namely the Avengers Forever storyline, Kang and Immortus were duking it out through time, and I think this is what the multiversal MCU war may lead to. Immortus manipulated infighting within the council, and in the end, all that was left was a character known as Prime Kang. Immortus then stepped forward and revealed that he wanted to become the ruler of all time, and this could lead into him becoming He Who Remains in the MCU. Now in the end, the Kangs are happy that the exile's being killed, but there's also the possibility that he was just sent further into the quantum realm. Either way, they believe that the heroes of the MCU are getting closer to stopping them, and that they have to be taken out so that they can rule over the multiverse. I think this will be where Kang Dynasty takes us to, with the council ruling over everything before the Kang infighting leads to a civil war between them taking place in Secret Wars. Now we actually get a direct nod to the comics in the final shot with a Colosseum of Kangs cheering. This is actually riffing on their first appearance, and that happened in Avengers issue 292. Either way, we know the Council is a big addition for the MCU, and from the Exile, we know that there are versions of Kang that want to destroy it. Anyway, Hank is saved by some ants, and we learn that someone brought into the quantum realm when they first went into it. Through time dilation, they've been down there for thousands of years, have grown really smart, and now built a whole civilization. Now when being escorted to a cell, Cassie breaks free in the classic cliché prisoner transport escape scene, and she rescues some of the rebels. Kang puts out a broadcast, but Cassie hijacks this and basically does the speech from the end of Andor to tell everyone to mount up. Scott arrives, and then an attack is launched on Kang's city. Modoc is beaten, and mate, you need to stop being a dick. Now Kang seems to be handling it all pretty well, until the one thing arrives that he didn't prepare for. Ants.
Ants! Ants! Antman!
Anyway, they swarm him, and Modoc shows up and says that he's not a dick. Finally, embracing his down-crossed side, he breaks Kang's shield, ants carry Kang away, and Modoc dies saying that at least he's an Avenger now. Which, is he though? At this point they go to leave, but Kang arrives once more. He's trying to get to Earth, and Scott makes it his mission to stop him from leaving, even if it means he has to lose. It's Kang versus Lang in a Kang bang that you can't hang. Mang. Like Scarface. Hey, f*** you, man. Now at this point, Hope arrives once more and saves the day, smacking him into the multiversal engine. The pair are seemingly trapped down there, and according to the original leaks on the film, they were going to be stuck there, which would end the movie. They were pretty spot on for the other parts of the film, but it looks like something changed along the way, and Cassie uses a device to open a doorway for them to travel through. Earlier in the movie, she stated that if she had something like that when he was gone, that she could have saved him, and this is very much her making sure that she doesn't lose her dad. Now the ending of the movie very much brings the beginning full circle, with Scott once more narrating his life. He picks up a birthday cake for Cassie, and even though it's not actually her birthday, he's making up for the ones he missed. Made by his former Baskin-Robbins boss, Scott seems to be back on top, but something still plagues his mind. Kang promised that others were coming, and Scott fears that he's doomed the world. However, they don't need to worry about that right now. It's a nice way to kill all the stakes. And we end with Scott taking a bite out of the cake and gagging. Was his boss really a Kang variant? Is he dead? Now, probably not, but it ends the movie on the idea that not everything is sunshine and rainbows, and that this sweet ending has a bitter aftertaste to it. This is reflected in the first post-credits scene, which we've already discussed, and we get more teasers of Kang coming down the line in the second. Here we catch Loki and Mobius at a theatre in the early 20th century, which is when we see a presentation by the Kang variant Victor Timely. In the comics, Kang ended up travelling back to 1901 after another humiliating defeat, and here he founded a town filled with factories and businesses. He built up the town of Timely around himself and even became the mayor, using his knowledge of the future to build himself up. The name Timely is also noted timely as well, as before Marvel was Marvel, it was Atlas Comics, and before that, it was Timely Comics. Victor built androids and duplicates of himself, and he even took on the name Victor Timely Jr. and pretended to be his own son. And in this scene, Loki is terrified of him, whereas Mobius doesn't seem that bothered. Keep almost saying Morbius, and I've got that movie locked in my brain because it's such a good film. Come on, come on!
Yes, put my best, put my 10.
However, I do think it teases out what the second season of Loki is going to be about, and I can imagine it's going to be a buddy cop thing where they're hunting down Kang variants. The first season was about hunting down Loki, and therefore that makes the most sense to me in terms of what could be happening. Now we also have the fact that the Fantastic Four are coming soon. I actually feel that they might interact with the Council of Kangs at some point, and this will be what brings them out. In the comics, Reed Richards actually ended up creating a Council of Reeds to stop him, and it's possible that they're going to do something similar in the MCU. Now, as for my thoughts on the movie, I thought this was the greatest film of all time, and Marvel, you've done it again. William Shatner is now back, and after saying I was disappointed with Phase 4, I'm happy to accept that Marvel money for positive reviews. Whoop whoop! Now, being honest, I think this film was fine, and that it's pretty much what you'd expect from a middle-of-the-road Marvel movie. Made by committee, it's just one of those adventures where things happen, and nothing really progresses, and we just have moments on screen to kill 2 hours. Now, I don't think that it deserves its rotten rating, but I also don't think it does anything memorable or completely groundbreaking. It feels about as deep as a Targaryen gene pool, and there's so many things that are badly handled in it which overrides the actual good aspects. Firstly, there's no real stakes to it, and I really went in this film thinking that Kang would win. However, when he's beaten by Antman, it doesn't make it feel like he's gonna be the big threat that he should be. I think Jonathan Majors is the best part of this movie, but even then, he doesn't feel like he's as fearsome as he should be. It was the same problem that they had with Gore, and whereas the comics had a massacring gods across the cosmos, the movie dumbed it down to where we just heard about it. It's the same as what happened with Kang, and I think they should have actually shown us some of the things that he did rather than just telling us. For example, you think about how Thanos was introduced in Infinity War, and we saw him holding Thor hostage, he kicked the crap out of the Hulk, and then killed Loki. Just beating the strongest hero like this instantly made him a threat, and throughout the movie, we constantly watched him winning. You could also emphasize with Thanos' motives, and though you might not agree with them, you could at least see why he was doing what he was doing. Kang is just doing this because he wants to rule, and I hope they reintroduce Ravonna soon so we at least get some stuff we can gravitate towards. And Paul Rudd does his usual, and you can tell he's comfortable acting against a green screen. However, the others, especially Michael Douglas, they just feel like they didn't really get directed properly, and the environment in general just feels very flat due to the real lack of direction there. You compare this to Avatar: The Way of Water, and that feels like an actual immersive world, whereas this doesn't a lot of the time. This lack of weight is carried across to the story as well, with it feeling like it's got the stakes of a Saturday morning cartoon. Modoc is wasted, and everything's completely surface level, leading to this feeling like filler. I had this problem with a lot of Phase 4 movies, and it feels like they made it for the sake of making it, rather than having a story that they needed to tell. Even the post-credit scene with Kang in concept is something that should be massive. However, Greg from Real Rejects and me were talking about it, and he said it was like an SNL sketch, and I couldn't get that out of my head when I went and watched it. Now, we always try and fill my reviews with both good and bad, and it's actually weird going from someone who gets called a Marvel shill all the time to now being the biggest hater of all time. So, as for the good, again, Paul Rudd and the first act of this film works really well. There's also of course Jonathan Majors and Michelle Pfeiffer. These feel like they're really smashing it out of the park, and I think if and when they're given great material that they're really going to shine. With Kang Dynasty being worked on at the moment, I hope they look back at the feedback from fans for this and realise that they need to step it up a bit. Majors was so good in Loki, and he completely stole the show, and based off this performance as well, I know he has the potential to do it. So in the end for me, this was a dud way to start Phase 5, and I kinda hope they just stop putting out so much content and instead just focus on making the odd really good thing like they used to in the olden days. I think just scaling stuff back, getting people involved with unique ideas, and moving away from this quantity over quality mind state, that it's going to help them massively. A lot of the problems of Phase 4 haven't been addressed here though, and we'll see how the rest of the slate pans out as we get into it. Feels like it's just a movie setting up other movies rather than being its own thing, and I think that these setup movies aren't good films until years down the line once we know they pay off. Now I know Marvel movies aren't made to exist in a vacuum, but I think the best ones always work on their own, and hopefully this ends up getting better with Age of Ultron. If you look back at Phase 1, those movies all worked on their own, and they weren't just put in place to be like, well, we're going to be doing something good down the line, just waste 2 hours with us and we'll promise you it'll be good. So in summary, Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania has its moments, but overall it misses the mark on a lot of things and feels like the shell of a great movie. You can see the goodness in there, but it's just been stripped back to fit this 2-hour runtime. Unfortunately, I wanted to like it way more than I did, and like I said before, there's that scene with the two characters that I think really should have been the tone of what the whole movie was. It's one of the best MCU backstories we've ever had, but everything around it just feels so middling. I might like it more on a second watch, but I think it's representative of the problems Phase 4 had, in that things are rushed to fit that 2-hour runtime, and the character development suffers in favour of the spectacle. Now you're completely free to form your own opinion, and if you haven't seen the movie, then I think you should go and see it. It's getting blasted online at the moment, and I think most people will come out of it thinking it wasn't as bad as everyone was saying, and that they might actually like some of it. I hope that's the case, as there are fun moments, and some of you might think it's the best Marvel movie ever made. It's got some great jokes in it, and there are some scenes with Kang that work really, really well. However, things like the whole rebel plot, just completely forgettable to me, and it's very by the numbers. Make up your mind for yourself, but for me, this gets a 6 out of 10. It's a very solid 6. I'm not going to put it a 5, because I think that would say it's a bad movie. I don't think it's bad, I just don't think it's as great as it could be. Now if you have seen it, then let me know your thoughts below, and I hope to see you on the next video. Probably not, probably burned all my bridges with all my hardcore MCU fans, but I'm just giving my honest opinion here, and I'd rather do that than be like, oh it's amazing, it's the best movie ever, and then 5 months down the line be like, oh we always told you it was bad, remember, but the MCU's getting better. I feel like the fans need to give honest critiques, and that's the only way that Marvel's going to get better. It had such a good run, we know they've got it, and yeah, seeing them fall off like this, it is quite disheartening. So yeah, let me know your thoughts below, and just to let you know, we're giving away 3 copies of the Rocky 4K box set on the 15th of March. All you have to do to be on the chance of winning is like the video, make sure you subscribe with notifications on, and drop a comment below with your thoughts on the film. We pick the comments at random at the end of the month, and the winners of the last one are on screen right now, so if that's you, then message me on Twitter at HeavySpoilers. If you want something else to watch, then make sure you check out our post-credit scene breakdown, which goes more in depth on those 2 final things. If not, then thanks for sticking through the video. I've been Paul, you've been the best, and I'll see you next time. Take care and buy a shirt. Peace.